Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, very, very good question.
Yeah, this is a very good question.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question.
Oh, that's a great question.
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Zanger.
It's a great question.
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Really good question.
Gosh, this question to me, I hate this question.
That's a loaded question. But okay.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for your support of Indie Agency News. Let's meet an indie agency. We go to Cali. We go down to Cali. We're going down to Cali. Christian Stein, founder and president, Stone Owl Consulting. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good to see you again.
Yeah. So you're an agency and also not an agency. But here's the thing: is we had to call this thing something, right? Yep. So Indie Agency News felt right, and so here we are. But we welcome independents of all stripes, whether you are a consultant, whether you're, especially production companies. If you are independent in anything in this space, in the advertising and marketing space, you are welcome here. So, Christian, what I want to get to the meat of with you would be a little bit about your background and how you've landed into the place that you are right now.
Mm-hmm. So I spent the better part of, almost 30 years working in agencies around the world, primarily a business and strategy lead. And in 2022, I left that world and focused on what I really wanted and loved doing, which was more of the upstream strategic stuff, working with brands and C-suite execs to really help them create a better brand future. And so I founded Stone Owl Consulting. And like you said, we are not an ad agency, but it's hard to figure out, like, what are we? We are a strategic consulting partner, I guess would be the best way of putting it.
Sure.
We've been working with some really interesting clients over the last 2 years and really solving a lot of business problems for them. With kind of a unique approach that we have.
I never asked you, what's the meaning of Stone Owl?
So Stone Owl is, a couple of things. So one, in terms of stone, we really believe in strength and long lasting and enduring things. So stone was kind of an obvious, metaphor there. And then owls are really, really fascinating animals because they're beautiful and they're smart and they can fly. And so what we kind of look at is those three things when we're looking at a brand and trying to solve a problem for them. First thing we look at is the wisdom side of it. So the strategic things that we can be doing using our brains to figure out how are we going to solve this. And then the beauty thing is more about, like, how is the brand showing up in the world? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And how can we make it, its best self? And then the ability to fly part is obviously how we activate it, how we activate that strategy, in the wild, so to speak. So it was kind of an interesting way of just sort of saying, like, we want, these rock solid, strategic foundational strategies, and also to give brands these characteristics of what owls have.
Yeah, I get it. I being able to explain the metaphor is helpful.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are like, I don't know why we call it.
We just looked through some words on a wall and that stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. What would you say the 3 top core strengths? What would you say rises to the top for you? And it is early days for you, but obviously you've seen some things rise to the top based upon the feedback from your clients. What would you say are the top 3 things for you?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is what we were talking right at the beginning, was we're not an ad agency, and therefore we don't have an advertising agenda, which kind of leads into what I would say the second thing, and they're probably equally strong, which is our approach. Having sort of sat on the agency side and also sat in the client seat as an embedded partner in my Stone Owl times, recently.
Mm-hmm.
What I've seen and what we've seen is that, the C-suite executives, especially the marketing ones, they have so much stuff they're trying to solve for, right? Like they just, like, hundreds of KPIs are being measured against, results, the to-do list like crazy. And and we kind of sat back and said, like, what if we kind of did like a ninja move and elevated them out of that? Like, what is the one thing that's going to solve all your business problems? And we kind of got to this idea of building brand preference, which is just another way of saying getting more people to love your brand. And if you think about it, like if your job is I've launched and we've done this with a client of ours, launch a digital media platform, and your goal is to grow subscribers. How are you going to do that? Well, you're going to get more people to love that brand, right? So, or if you need to increase sales, the logic follows. If you want to reduce churn, the more people that prefer your brand or love your brand are going to stick around. Right. And so it's the simplicity of one goal, right? And if you think about your daily life as well, like if you wake up on a Saturday and you've got a to-do list of 20 things, you're probably going to achieve maybe 3. Right, because it's just overwhelming, right? And so if you're a CMO and you're looking at like all the things you need to solve for, what if you actually said, actually, I'm going to step up above that and go focus on one thing, which is building brand preference. Now all of a sudden you've elevated out of the mud and the weeds and stuff, and you're actually able to see the whole business and identify blind spots you might not have seen before. And we like to say, using the owl metaphor, we help our clients see the forest and the trees, and we do that by saying, like, look, let's just focus on one thing. And when you do that, you all of a sudden see, well, maybe actually like my checkout process sucks and that's causing friction, or maybe my messaging isn't clear, or maybe my positioning is a little bit watery. And that's what allows us to really kind of focus and identify strategies for brands that are actually going to help them succeed long term.
Yep.
And then the third thing I would say is we're fast and efficient. We don't, having been in the big agency world for many years, I know that you can be a lot faster. You can be a lot faster and more efficient with the investments, right? So yeah. So that's kind of where we play in this idea of building brand preference.
I'm trying to think of like a transportation metaphor for big clunk clunk. Actually, it would be a big boat. Yeah, there we go.
Exactly. It's like
doesn't turn on a dime.
Liner,
right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, because this is really interesting, because, and listen, I bang on the holdcos because I just do, but I worked for a holdco. I worked for IPG. There's good stuff happening in holdcos. I like poking the bear a little bit. Let's be honest. But what I will say is, transitioning from holdco to independent, what have you noticed thus far? And then why is it important to be independent? I mean, you've talked about agility, and people do talk about that. They talk about speed. They talk about being able to really be involved with the top levels of the agency. Outside of that, what are some things that you're noticing, and why is it important to be independent?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to, having the conversations that matter and can actually be super effective, because we aren't sort of existing with an end goal of creating advertising. Right? We may create advertising if that's what's needed, but having sort of been in the big agencies and small agencies, like at the end of the day, the agenda is to create ads. And oftentimes, we kind of laugh, like we recommend email marketing because it actually works, right?
Not? Yeah.
And there's no shame in that. Like it should be something that you're looking at. And so I think when you're independent, first of all, I think it gives you access because you're not coming with a specific agenda. And it allows you also to have the conversations that CMOs or CXOs really actually want to have, because they're not laying in bed going, well, if a Super Bowl spot's going to solve all our problems. I mean, some might be, but I think the reality is a lot of things beyond a Super Bowl spot are going to solve your problems. But I think when you're in a big agency, the Super Bowl spot is the thing you want to do. So, your agenda is not the client's agenda. And I think as an independent, especially having sort of extrapolated or extracted ourselves from the advertising side of things, we have the ability to really help clients see, like I said, those blind spots that they might not be seeing, and help them solve their business problems.
Right. You've covered a lot of reasons why a brand should work with you, but what if you were to sum it up in, I don't want to say one pithy phrase, but you know what I mean? If you could bake it down into one thing, what's the main reason a brand should work with you?
Like I said before, I think because we help them see the forest and the trees, and when we do that, we're able to build brand preference, which no matter what they're trying to solve for, will actually be effective.
Yeah, I like that. That's nice and snappy. Let's talk about talent. How do you navigate talent within your company? You and I have talked about this a little bit, but what's the size of your company?
We're small. I think we're like a lot of agencies that are out there now, which is like, we've been around long enough, and there's enough gray hairs out there that we can tap into. But I think it's just where we like to do is what we'd like to do is just be surgical. Like if you have a specific need, like we'll bring in someone to actually solve that, and then jettison them as soon as that job is done, so you're not just paying for head count. And I think that's kind of the way things are going right now. I think we want to be small, we want to be flexible, but I think it's beneficial to the clients because we are efficient with their investment, and we get the best thinking out there. We have talent all over the place. We can offshore. We've got an amazing team of creative film people in Sao Paulo. We've got amazing talent in Europe, in the US, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. I like the gray hairs.
So gray hairs and non-gray hairs, and I think
non-gray hairs.
And I think that's the other thing. And I know we've already, we had a segment on this on another time, but this thing that the service that we've created called Resin Lab also is in service of
driving
brand preference for brands that are trying to, connect with Gen Alpha and Gen Z. And so that in that instance, our talent is actually Gen Alpha and Gen Z, which is super cool. So we kind of have built out, an ecosystem of talent in different areas to deliver whatever our clients need. We identify as their problems that need to be solved.
Yeah. We this is a new question we asked. We added to the mix. You consider yourselves weirdos, misfits, or underdogs, and why is that?
I would say we consider ourselves the underdogs, but in a good way, because I don't
mean it's not meant to be pejorative.
No, not at all.
Underdogs are good.
No, exactly. And I think the reason I say underdogs is because I would ask any CMO who's sitting there going, I think I need to do an agency review, to call us and spend an hour with us and see if an agency is like an ad agency is really what they need. And I would argue that, maybe coming in as the wild card or the underdog, we might actually enlighten them to a different way of attacking what they're trying to solve for.
Yeah, no, I like that. Whether they are an existing client or not, little thought exercise here. Who's a marketer or CMO you want to say hi to? Give a little wave to.
I have thought about this, and I would say, the blanket statement I would say is any marketer who feels overwhelmed, wants to simplify, and knows that you can't always advertise your way out of a problem or advertise your way to success. So that's kind of my boilerplate answer. But I'm fascinated by Peloton. I'm really, really fascinated to see, where they're going. I think they're doing some interesting stuff. I have a point of view on it that I would love to share with them one-on-one, just because I'm an avid user of their app and their brand. But, I think there's some blind spots they might not be seeing. Adobe is another one. I think that's a really fascinating brand with the challenges that companies like Canva are probably giving them right now. So I would love to just kind of talk to them and see where they're going.
I'm a fan of both. It is an interesting dynamic. I do use both.
Likewise.
Different. And it's
Adobe's interesting. I worked on GoPro back in, I think it was like 2017, and they were facing a real similar challenge where the iPhone basically took away all their consumers because all of a sudden everyone had a camera in their pocket, or smartphones for that matter. And so it was like, how are you actually going to move and get more people besides the prosumers,
Right.
on board.
Oh my God. Do you remember? Okay, I can't see if I can remember. Cisco had a camera. And so I want to say this was 08, 09, something like that. I think it was called the flip camera. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh my God. And I remember it's the same thing that I think about when I think of the social network Path, which was just 50 people. I wish they would bring that back. But so I remember I was such an advocate for it. I was just like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then Cisco announced, and I forget what year it was, but they announced that they were discontinuing it. And I thought, why? And then I looked down at my iPhone and went, yeah,
that's why. Yeah, that thing. Yeah.
Like that was really smart, Cisco.
Yep.
Really, really sharp. Is there like from back in the day, is there one thing? This is like bonus time, I guess. Is there any product, or again, I mentioned the social platform Path. Is there anything from back in the day that you would love to see make a comeback?
It's funny. I think Polaroid is a really interesting.
Oh yeah,
Polaroid cameras, and
right.
And it's interesting, especially when we talk about like Gen Alpha. Right. Like my son, who's 9, wants a Polaroid camera, and it's crazy because when we were kids, we had Polaroid cameras, and it was like, just there's sort of that. I think there's something really interesting about like the tactileness of it.
Mm-hmm.
And versus like everything, now it's just disposable pictures on your phone. Even, it's interesting, the disposable cameras are making a comeback.
I saw that. Yeah,
like,
I saw that.
People want those, right? And then, but the
Right.
crazy thing is you take it to like CVS and they're like, yeah, that'll be 2 weeks for you to get your prints. And you're like, wait, what? It used to be like an hour, and because they don't have the infrastructure anymore to do it. So I think like a brand like Polaroid is really interesting. And I think they're situated to potentially make a really big comeback in the market.
Yep. Path, bring it back.
Especially with the youngins.
Right, with the youngins. Path, just bring it back. I just want a social network with 50 people.
Yeah.
That's all I want. Christian, thank you so much for your support of Indie Agency News. Always a pleasure catching up with you, and appreciate the support, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you so much. It's great seeing you again.